water connects all things. Before your birth and after your death.
This is our home!
I need you with me. And I need you to be strong. Strongheart.
Okay.
Avatar, 13 years in the making. Big Jim has been tinkering away at his old computer. I don't know why I did like hammer and chisel.
He's literally, maybe this is why it's taking 13 years, because he's like trying to type out a script with a hammer and chisel on his MacBook, and he keeps breaking it, and he can't figure out why.
So the original movie, 2009, here we are, 2022. Finally, we get a sequel.
This is the longest gap in Cam Man's career, right?
Yeah. Not only that, but this is like probably the most expensive movie ever made. Yeah. And, you know, we've been, Avatar has been this whole joke on the internet, you know, and I've been trying to like buy into this hype, you know, and like really make a show of it.
I think you've been succeeding. You haven't been just trying.
Well, you were ahead of the curve a little bit, because Avatar has had an interesting life where it's kind of gone full circle, where it came out, it was the biggest movie in the world, quite literally the most successful movie ever made. Then 3-4 years go by and people are like, God, Avatar, the blue people movie, and it got clowned on for a couple years. It coincided, the like joking on it came whenever Pandora World opened up at Animal Kingdom and Disney, because people were like, they're making a whole freaking subsect of Disney about that, and it's like, guys, there's a Song of the South ride, like, get over it, you'll be fine. So Avatar then got shit on for a couple years, and now it felt forced at first. I'm not gonna lie. The resurgence. We need to like rekindle the magic of Avatar. We have to go back to Pandora.
Well, it needed to be forced because it had swung so far in the other direction.
Yeah, where like Avatar is bad. And it's like, no, Avatar isn't bad.
Yeah,
like,
everyone, especially in our generation, because we saw it when we were basically kids, and then as we became, you know, young adult teenagers, it was like we were being gaslit into thinking that this movie was trash.
I think a lot of it is he doesn't. I think I may have seen this point on the internet, but I agree with it. Some Cameron content doesn't age well with a newer generation because it is not. It is so deeply serious, like it's self-serious in a way. Where, like, he's not trying to wink at you in any way. He's like, this is a big ass fucking movie. I did it.
And he's made some of the best movies ever made. Aliens, T2, Titanic. Like, he's delivered. And you know, he had a couple little more low key, like True Lies in the Abyss. But even like, he doesn't miss is the thing. Even when he does something more kind of subdued, like, it's still a good movie. But then in the last 20 years, he's only made 2 movies. So it's like there's this heft to it. And then now knowing that not only is this the second one, but we're also getting a third, maybe a 4th and 5th one too. There's this insane baggage around it. And now finally we have seen it. Hunter, what did you think?
I think that this movie had a very simple job, but it was a very difficult task for it to do. The simple job is that it had to get people to buy back into this world. It had to say, hey, welcome back to Pandora. And not only did Cameron doesn't need anything. He's fine. He's one of the most successful directors of all time. But Disney fucking needed this movie. Yeah. With how they have fumbled the fucking bag with Star Wars, and now with Marvel, like this year of Marvel, right? Disney was looking on the downtick. And let me tell you, The Way of Water is the fucking antidote that that Disney needs. Shout out to Big Bob Iger coming back.
And Big Jim
coming in to save the day.
He came back and Jim Cameron was like, let me finish this. You know what? I was about to throw it away, but
I got this.
He was about to hit delete on Final Cut. And then it was just like, no.
Our screening got postponed a day. I was worried for a second. I was like, oh shit, did he shut it all down?
Well, no, because it was worse, because at first we were like, oh, it's a projector issue. And then we found out later on that the film cut that they sent to our theater was so like encrypted that they couldn't unlock it to show the screening of it, which is just insane.
There have to be two people at two different keyholes across the room
at the exact same time.
There needs to be a naked man in a submarine just like reaching.
So The Way of Water, we'll just get out of the way now. This movie fucking rules. It is dramatically better than the first movie, in my opinion. Like, I think Avatar, I've been a little bit of a victim to the roller coaster that it's gone through, where I've been like, I saw it in theaters. I was like, that's really cool. Even in the moment, I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to watch that movie. Like, if that's going to age as well at home. And I didn't watch it for probably close to 10 years. Fired it back up a couple weeks ago. And it's really good. It's a very, very basic movie. It is a movie that is made for all people. And that's kind of the magic of Avatar, is
like
that
a lowest common denominator.
Yeah, well, it's a movie that it's understandable regardless of race, regardless of ethnicity and where you live in the world, what your class is or anything. Avatar is made for you. And to the point where it gets shit because it's like kind of so baseline and so bare bones in its story, while also telling this like very convoluted, like if you actually think about the technicalities of like how this Avatar works, then, you know, whatever, you can dissect that to your to the ends of time. But The Way of Water, it is also a movie that's made for all people, but I think that it kind of delivers on the promise and on the magic of like what this world is better than the original film.
I thought you were going to be like, now this one, it's not for Filipinos.
Yeah.
some random race.
Let me tell you.
It's for everyone except the Chinese.
I'm sorry. If you're Portuguese, like, stay away, okay?
Yeah. So like I said, I've been building this one up. You know, I've been fully blue pilled. I've been drinking the Big Jim tea, the full on Pandora Kool-Aid just going through my veins. So it was almost like I was either setting myself up for failure, like there was no way I was overhyping it to death, or there was no way I wasn't going to like it. So I kind of ended up somewhere in the middle where I love the movie, but I am seeing clearly some of its flaws. And I think that it's so much of it is undeniable. Like so much of it is like, this is the kind of movie that only James Cameron could make. Like it's just so massive, so spectacular. The VFX tech is unlike anything you've ever seen in your life. It just is absolutely stunning. And he respects his audience. He knows that it's not enough just to do big CGI punch fest. You have to get people to actually care. You have to respect your audience enough to know that if they're taking time out of their day and paying money to go see your movie, that you should give them something to care about. And this movie fucking does that so well. And there's an entire hour at the end of this movie that is nonstop action, and it's him just cashing those chips. It's like, let's fucking go, dude. This is what you're here for, and you care about everything. I think that some of the flaws come in like some of the characters. It's a big cast. There's a lot of new characters, and even at 3+ hours, it kind of struggles a little bit to kind of get you invested in all of these characters. By the end of the movie, there's like 2 or 3 new characters that you really, really care about. And you've seen their whole journey through the movie. But for a while there, I was like, man, I'm really struggling to kind of differentiate a lot of these blue people
Are
from
you
each other.
saying that all Na'vi look the same, Ernest? What the fuck? Dude, you can't say that.
This movie was especially for you.
Right.
You're supposed to learn something.
Oh boy.
And there were so many moments where Hunter, we were sitting next to each other. We couldn't help but just like chuckle. There was just like
some of the dialogue moments are so good. They're so corny.
There's
and like,
so much corn.
Well, but that's the thing. Okay, so my comment coming right out of this movie is this is on a lot of ways for good and mostly for good, but a little bit for bad. This is kind of like James Cameron's greatest hits.
Yeah.
Like there is
Little
elements
Titanic.
of every single movie that he's done in here. There's of course very obviously James Cameron like passion for water, down to that there
way
are
of.
sinking ships but the exploration of water in this movie is it actually genuinely brought a tear to my eye the
It's
first time
incredible.
that you go underwater, watching this in Dolby 3D, which by the way, I'm not a 3D person. I never see 3D movies. Go out and see this movie in Dolby 3D. It's the most gorgeous thing that
So
I've ever
crisp.
seen. It's so beautiful.
It's like you can reach out and touch
But
these
not-
sea creatures.
but not in like a whoa, I'm coming right at
It's
you
a
kind of
depth.
a way.
It's like you're in the
Yes.
tank.
But going back to that, there's elements of course, the water that's throughout James Cameron's career. There's a lot of aliens and Terminator, especially like T2 kind of vibes in here. And the dialogue is just kind of that classic 80s action corn dialogue
just
where it's
movie,
just like
it's just the way people just talk in a
these
movie.
aren't real people.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing here, the way Stephen Lang, every line of dialogue that he has is like deliciously corny.
The fact that he's even in this movie when his character died in the
Gets a
first
spear
one.
to the heart. And I don't want to spoil anything like that, but the setup for how they have both Stephen Lang and Sigourney Weaver, who also dies in the first Avatar movie, and they bring them back.
I guess we're spoiling Avatar
I'm not.
1.
I'm not. I'm so
I
sorry.
haven't seen Avatar 1.
You've never seen Avatar?
No.
There's a lot of this movie, like visually, it's just kind of undeniable. I think that's the thing that I was almost baseline expecting that. So it's not something like I can pat Jim on the back too much about this. He made a whole fucking big deal about how, like, guys, it had to take 12 years. Like, I couldn't fully realize my vision. So I was expecting it to look beautiful, but it still somehow surpassed my expectations visually. There weren't any like rough sequences in this movie. Like there are in Avatar now. Avatar still for the most part holds up really well, but there's a couple creatures. I'm thinking specifically of like the jungle jaguar creature that's like too slick. It looks like a PS4 graphics almost.
I mean, honestly, there's a lot of stuff in this new movie that does look like the best video game ever made.
There's
the greatest PS5 fucking graphics all the way maxed out.
There's a very early set piece that happens in this movie where there's like a train that blows up that looks like a PS5 cutscene. Here's the thing though. PS5s are getting very good with their graphics, and so therefore this looks good. Like it looks like a game cutscene. Also, I mean the high frame rate, which is the thing that we should mention.
That's a whole thing. I mean, a lot of people have been talking about how that takes them out of the movie. Is the variable frame rate, because it's not like this entire movie is in 48 frames per second. It kind of jumps back and forth between 24 and 48, and that jumping back and forth can be tough sometimes to see a shot that's like very smooth and then cut to a shot that's like a little bit more choppy, a little bit more motion blur, and then back to a super smooth sequence. I think that's tough, and I could feel that back and forth kind of herky jerky. We're talking a little bit. It's similar to when you see a movie in IMAX and you're cutting between like the full frame and the letterbox in the same scene. It's like an augmented version of that feeling. The high frame rate stuff, at least in our Dolby 3D screening, looked incredible.
Yeah.
It adds so much realism and fidelity to the image that it makes the 24 frames per second stuff kind of look worse. But I don't know. I kind of wish that they would just pick one, like maybe just have 24 or 48. I don't know what the decision is behind having it kind of switch back and forth.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know like the technical know-how that went into this reported $250 million movie. If I had to guess, I'm going to say that it cost more than $250 million. But yeah, no, to your point about kind of the IMAX quality, how like whenever I first saw this, the difference, the kind of flipping back and forth between 48 and 24 frames per second reminded me specifically of whenever, if you're ever at home and you watch The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight was one of the first like big films that's notable that shot a lot of sequences.
Dark Knight Rises.
Yes, Dark Knight Rises. They shot a lot of sequences in IMAX, but it does the same kind of thing where it's like it's wide cut, cut, wide cut. Yeah, and it does kind of take you out of it a little bit in the action sequences. I think that this is handled better.
Much
then again,
better.
we were in a theater, so whenever I'm noticing these things about Dark Knight Rises, it's now watching it at home and being used to more consistently shot sequences throughout an entire action scene. But I think that similar to those movies, this is going to change the way that movies are made for better and for
just like
for
the
worse.
first Avatar.
Like there's going to be so many movies. Think about the big push in like 3D Blu-rays after the release of Avatar, and most of them are fucking awful. There's going to be so many movies that are going to try and do the high frame rate thing where, especially because not only Avatar is the greatest example, but that night sequence in Nope is shot in 48 frames per second. And that's an entire scene.
Well, there's a lot more going on there. There's like infrared cameras.
Right. But I mean, like, as far as like, we're now starting to use high frame rate in films and it work well. I think Hardcore Henry, that movie from a few years ago that did the first person.
Gemini Man.
That had some high frame rate in it, but that's like handled in the bad ways. This is it actually executed correctly. And we're going to see a lot of movies that are going to try to use this style. The problem is, no one else is James Cameron. And the whole time while I was watching the last act of this movie, which like you mentioned is a giant whole action battle.
It's fucking incredible.
How cohesive and well choreographed it is.
Yes.
You can, if you look in the background of shots, you can see extras just like punching each other, like trying to do things. The entire
the geography of it too, just like, you know, the good guys are coming from this direction, the bad guys are in this direction, you know, there's this structure and they're coming up on it, and there's stuff happening in there, and it gets split in half because like there's a lot of stuff happening in the daytime and then it kind of turns into nighttime. So you have this constant like dynamic movement to the sequence where you're invested, you're emotionally hooked, the stakes are there. It's all incredibly coherent.
Yeah. And I mean, this is on a foreign planet, and it feels so much more concrete and tangible than any Marvel property has ever put out. Like, I just can't.
He's showing us how it's done. He's coming in and being like, Big Jim's home.
Even at its best, like, think about the end of Avengers Endgame. Put that movie on and look at the background. Don't look in the foreground at the characters that are in focus. Look at everything that's happening in the background. It's just red mush. It just all kind of blends together. Every Marvel thing just has this. Yeah, it all has this kind of flattening effect that there's no depth to it. This movie has so much depth. It has so much lived in. It feels so lived in, this world. And I think that that's kind of the magic of James Cameron, that this has the same thing as the first Avatar movie, where we do get a big old chunk of exposition right there at the beginning. And it does kind of, if you're going to cut anything from this movie, it's that we take 10 minutes off the top there.
It's just more Avatar.
It's a lot of like, all right, we're back in the floating islands.
Yeah, it's
again.
very much 3 hours of a movie. The first hour is like, all right, we're just continuing the story, continuing these characters, setting up new characters in this framework. Second hour, we're introducing the Water Tribe.
Which this is the third act is amazing, the action set piece. The second act is my favorite thing. I think that's like incredible character work. That is the thing where it's so much better character work than anything that's in the first Avatar movie. And it's because the kids are really fucking good. I think the smart thing this movie does is that I'm so sorry, Jake Sully. You are not the sole interesting protagonist of this story. We meet so many other characters that are frankly just much more compelling figures. Yeah. Like mostly I mean, Sigourney Weaver is Kiri. It is a little bizarre to see the voice of a 70-something-year-old woman come out of a character that's supposed to be a teenager. That is very bizarre. Yeah, but you know.
The best thing about this movie for me is as it slows down in this second act, it asks you to care about these sea creatures, and it introduces you to these whales. I don't know the fucking Pandora name for whale. I'm sorry, James Cameron. But there's this new resource. They're essentially like they're whalers. They're whaling is what the humans are doing. Goodbye unobtainium, your old news. Yeah. The new substance is this whale oil. And the fact that the movie
that essentially like stops aging, like it's like something from like their brain matter that like stops aging. So like a vial of it is worth like hundreds of millions of dollars.
The movie slows down to show you this in a lot of detail and be like, all right, this is a huge part of your emotional investment in this movie is that the humans are here to kill these whales. And it's incredibly effective, and you care so much, and you're just so emotionally hooked. And going into this third act, that is like this hour of nonstop action. Not only are you invested in the family, in the Jake Sully family, but you're invested in these creatures and this world, and it's fucking great.
That's Cameron just fully in his bag. It's just him just fully just like,
good.
We're also going to have an anti-poaching plot line in my movie here. He's just the best, man. This is just, this movie just kind of gave me that great blockbuster feeling where I was just like smiling for so much of this movie. I was just like, this rules.
A good blockbuster makes you dumb. Like when you're watching it, it makes you just go like,
I cackled at some dumb
lines. That's how we were.
Also, like, who cares?
That's like what Top Gun did.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This movie doesn't handle the kind of the dumb monkey brain in the same way Top Gun does, but that's because James Cameron is trying to fit in more ideas in here. And if anything, there's a little bit of like, is this movie two movies kind of sandwiched together in one? Because we have to like reintroduce you to the world and also introduce this whole other world. And I mean, it makes sense. You got to do a lot of shit. It's been fucking over a decade.
So how do you feel about the next one?
Well, that's the thing. I'm all in. I cannot fucking wait for Avatar 3. And that's why Avatar 2 is The Way of Water is such a success, is because like I'm back in. I saw a whale speak and they had papyrus subtitles. I'm fucking good, man.
The subtitles?
Papyrus subtitles to a whale. Dude. And I just started clapping in the theater. I was like, let's fucking go, James.
And you're so just emotionally invested in these fucking whales, dude.
It's so good, man.
It's crazy.
Another thing I can't stand is the placeholder posters for the next 3 avatars on Letterboxd.
It's just A3, A4.
Yeah. Pro tip though, you can rate those movies now.
Okay, good.
I just gave Avatar 5 3.5 stars.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Did you hear about? So one of the great gifts right now is that we get James Cameron in press tour mode, which has just been such a delight. And he just does not give a single fuck. And he said that he received one studio note for his Avatar 4 script,
Oh.
and it was holy fuck.
That rules, man. What a guy. I'm so happy we have James Cameron back in our lives after 10 years. This fucking rocks.
I'm imagining he got like a physical script back to him, and on page like 148, there's like a little red mark. This is
Holy fuck.
Avatar 4. Like, what are we doing? Like, is humanity still going to be alive?
I know.
Like,
the future's just not real. The studio's like, yeah, have fun with those.
I mean, they're coming out every other year now.
Yeah,
is Avatar 3 wrapped? I know that it's like filmed, I think.
The VFX are going to take fucking forever.
Well, I didn't know how much, like, I didn't know, like, how long ago they finished filming Avatar 3, because of course, VFX take years on this project.
Well, I mean, based on this movie, it really seems like they're setting up these kids to be like this massive story. Like, they're probably going to age up these kids. There's probably going to be a big time jump where we see these kids sort of like, you know, grow up throughout the course of this entire new story. So I'm sure that, you know, if we get to see Avatar 4 and 5, it's going to be way, way down the line. But we're big fans.
Yeah.
Jim Cameron, good job.
Good job.
Did it. We recommend the movie. I'm sure it's going to be a big hit. It's definitely one of my favorites of the year. It's maybe going to make my top 10. It's a very competitive year.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're going to get into it. This has been a fucking great movie here, man. There's a lot of
I had a spot reserved for it. I saw it. I loved it. I'm like, okay, we'll see.
Like,
we'll
it's
see.
between you and Black Adam for that last spot.
Right. Hierarchy of power. So that's Avatar.